Virgo. Something is asking for your attention, not in the alarm producing something is wrong sense that urgency sometimes carries. In the specific, gentle but insistent, this matters and deserves to be taken seriously quality of something that has been present perhaps for a while without receiving the full quality of attention. It has been quietly asking for something in your life, something real, something that will not resolve itself through continued waiting or the comfortable default of treating it as something to be addressed later when the conditions are slightly more favorable. Later is becoming now. That is the honest quality of what Spirit is pressing forward today, not as manufactured urgency, not as the artificial pressure designed to produce a reaction before genuine readiness has arrived, as the honest observation that a window which has been open is moving slowly in the specific, natural, this is simply how timing works way of things that are available for a period and then reconfigure into something that requires more effort to access than it did when the window was fully open. Take what is yours today, what resonates, let it reach the part of you that has perhaps been knowing something without fully acting on the knowing. What does not, release it gently. But for those of you who felt something activate when I said later is becoming now, who felt the specific recognition of someone who has been aware of something requiring action and has been in the process of gathering the readiness to act, this reading is speaking directly to that gathering. Let me speak honestly about what this reading is actually about. Because Sirius is in the energy today, not as alarm, not as the dramatic weight of something threatening, but as the honest quality of something that deserves to be met with the full quality of your presence rather than the half attention of someone who has categorized it as something to be addressed eventually. Eventually has a way of becoming never. Not through anyone's failure, simply through the accumulation of other priorities and the specific comfort of the familiar that makes the status quo, however insufficient, easier to maintain than to change. Soft sigh. What in your life has been sitting in the eventually category? That is the honest question Spirit is pressing you toward today. Not with judgment, with the specific caring quality of something that wants you to have what is available, rather than watching you defer it indefinitely through the particular human genius for finding reasons why the present moment is not quite the right one. For some of you, it is a conversation. The specific, I have been meaning to say, this conversation that has been forming in you, taking shape, finding its words, approaching the moment of its saying without yet finding the moment that feels sufficiently right to actually happen. The moment will not arrive from outside. It will not be delivered by circumstances that have finally arranged themselves into the perfect configuration for what needs to be said. It will be made by you from the inside through the specific act of deciding that the conversation is more important than the comfort of continued deferral. That decision is available right now. And the window in which it produces the most natural and most complete outcome is open right now. In a way, it may not be indefinitely. For others, it is a decision. Something that has been examined from every angle, assessed, considered, turned over repeatedly in the Virgo adjacent way of someone who has given the question more than sufficient deliberation, and that has been waiting not for more information, but for the specific act of choosing. The distinction matters. More deliberation will not produce more certainty. Certainty in decisions of this kind comes from the choosing rather than from the continued examining. And the choosing, the actual, this is what I am doing, choosing, is what the present moment is asking for. For others, still, it is a person. Someone toward whom something real exists, feeling, connection, the specific quality of genuine caring that deserves to be honored rather than managed indefinitely into the convenient ambiguity of nothing declared. Who has been in the eventually category of your own heart for long enough that the eventually has begun to feel like simply the permanent state of the thing rather than a temporary holding pattern? It is not permanent. It is a choice that has been made repeatedly, the choice of the comfortable ambiguity over the vulnerable clarity, and that can be unmade. In the direction of the clarity, which is available now. Now let me speak about what acting from a genuine place rather than from artificial urgency actually produces. Because this reading is not asking you to act from fear, is not asking you to move before you are ready, because something terrible will happen if you do not. Nothing terrible is threatened. What is at stake is simply the best version of what is available. Things that are addressed in the natural window of their availability tend to produce cleaner outcomes than things addressed after the window is moved. Not because the later addressing is impossible, it is not, but because the specific configuration of circumstances and readiness and the energy of two people or a situation at a particular moment is a configuration that does not hold indefinitely, that shifts, that reconfigures, and what was available in one configuration is sometimes available in a different form or with more effort in the configuration that follows. The current configuration is favorable. That is the specific thing Spirit is confirming today. Not that action is mandatory or that failure to act produces catastrophe, but that the current configuration of whatever your particular situation involves is pointing toward a natural opening. A moment where what needs to happen can happen with the specific quality of ease that favorable configurations produce. Where the conversation can be had without the additional friction of circumstances that have shifted, where the decision can be made from solid ground rather than from the more complicated terrain that delay tends to produce, where the person can be approached in the specific quality of moment that makes the approaching feel proportionate to what the connection deserves. Use the favorable configuration. That is the honest and practical instruction, not as urgency, as the simple, grounded wisdom of someone who understands that good conditions for important things are worth recognizing and moving within rather than allowing to pass while waiting for conditions that are theoretically better but practically indefinitely deferred. Soft sigh. Now I want to speak about what is required to act from the genuine place, because the acting this reading is pointing toward is not impulsive, is not the reactive movement of someone who has been told something is urgent and has responded from that telling rather than from their own honest interior. The acting that produces real outcomes is always anchored in the genuine interior. In the specific, this is what I actually want and need place that is always available, but not always consulted before action is taken. Consult it now. Before the conversation, before the decision, before whatever the specific action is that this reading is pointing toward for you, Locate yourself honestly in the private, this is what I actually feel and need place, and act from there, not from the urgency of a reading, not from the pressure of a timeline, from your own honest knowing, which has been available all along about what this moment requires of you. Because your honest knowing is the most reliable available guide for action, more reliable than any external signal, more reliable than the favorable configuration of circumstances, however real, more reliable than the sense of a window moving, however accurate that sense may be. Your honest knowing about what matters, about what you actually want, about what the genuine interior says when it is consulted without the managing and the protecting and the deferral that is the thing to act from. And what your honest knowing says, Spirit is pressing this forward with the warmth that characterizes something true rather than the pressure that characterizes something manufactured, is that what matters to you is worth acting on, worth the specific courage of moving from the knowing to the doing, worth the conversation or the decision or the reaching toward the person or the opportunity that has been in the eventually category long enough that the eventually has started to feel like simply the permanent state of things. It does not have to be the permanent state. That is perhaps the most important thing this reading has to offer. The eventually can become now, not through external pressure, through the simple, available, entirely within your reach decision to treat what matters as something that deserves the quality of action that its mattering has always warranted. What matters to you is worth treating as if it matters. In the real, concrete, I am moving toward this because it is important enough to move toward way, rather than the eventual, theoretical, intend to address this when conditions are right way. Conditions that are right enough exist right now. And right enough when what is at stake is something genuinely important is sufficient. Something is asking for your attention. Seriously, not with alarm, with the specific, honest, this deserves more than it has been getting quality of something that has been patient and is now pressing forward. Not because disaster is imminent, because what is available in the current favorable configuration is genuinely good, genuinely worth meeting with the quality of action it deserves, and the current favorable configuration is the right moment to meet it. Give it your attention, your full attention from the honest interior, in the real moving toward what matters way of someone who has decided finally, without the protective deferral, that what is important enough to act on now. If this reading found you today, if something here gave honest language to something you have been knowing without fully acting on, stay close, subscribe, and come back. Because the story of someone who finally acts from their genuine knowing and what that produces is one worth witnessing all the way through. And the next reading will be there for every grounded, real step of what the acting makes possible.